What's up, everyone? I'm back here with hopefully another interesting video. This time it's a little bit different, as you can see. I'm going to actually try out a live fantasy mock draft, and for all those interested, it's a 12-man PPR league, so it does work a little bit differently. But as I go, I just want to let you guys know the way I'm going to kind of narrate this video, just kind of give my feedback on as many things as I can. So it's going to be pretty full of information. But at the same time, when it ends, feel free to let me know whether it was something you enjoyed, the way I kind of gave my analysis, or if you want me to scale it down a little bit or make the video longer, shorter. I'm going to shoot for something around 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long. So just keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, as you can tell, draft is started. It looks like there will be some people on auto pick, unfortunately, but that's how it is with these mock drafts. I'll just take you through my thought process. You see, I've got the third pick overall, and this is a position that I actually am pretty fond of. I think ideally in this year's draft, you want to be picking in the top 3 or the top 4. And for future videos, I'll do something like this again, but most likely I'll try and pick towards the end of the order or towards the middle and kind of see how the team changes, what players are available, and which team is better. Whether I can make a better team picking in the first half of the draft, towards the middle, or towards the end. So far, I've had pretty good success with the top 3, 4 picks, and I don't envision that to change. My strategy has been, if I'm in that first 3 range, go with one of the top running backs, because I do think this year the way that you're gonna go far and probably win a championship is if you have some combination of a tier 1 receiver or tier 1 running back plus tier 2 receiver, some kind of combination like that. And as you can see, the first 2 picks were Bell and David Johnson. And if I had my ways, I probably would have picked David Johnson. I think he's the best available player in all drafts, and I think he should be going number 1. But at this point, I value running backs, especially pass catching running backs, more than the elite receiver. I don't feel comfortable taking Zeke here, especially because of all his issues recently that are surfacing off the field. And I know that he might get suspended, but as of right now, as of today, he hasn't been suspended, so I'm treating this draft as if we're starting the season right now. So that's why I'm picking Zeke. If not, if the news had already come out about his suspension, maybe he drops a couple spots in this order. Maybe he starts being taken somewhere around 5 or 6 or 7 maybe. Antonio Brown, obviously not a bad consolation prize. He'll probably be the best, PPR receiver yet again. But with all that being said, I actually think there's a pretty big drop-off in running backs after Zeke. The next guy is Devonta Freeman at number 12. I usually see people reaching to get a guy like him. I definitely know that neither him nor Melvin Gordon are going to last until my 22nd pick, which is a shame because if you look at the guys that are available around 22, you've got guys like Jay Ajayi, you've got Lamar Miller, who had a very disappointing season last year, and I don't think too much has changed. I know they've got Deshaun Watson now, but I don't know if he's going to start out the season as their guy. Also, Miller was hurt on and off, and he was losing snaps to Alfred Blue even when he wasn't hurt, so that's kind of a concern. And in general, I just tend to think you can find quality receivers as the draft goes. Basically, that just means this year's draft, normally other drafts are deeper in receivers than they are in running backs. So if I hadn't picked a running back here, I probably would have had to have a guy like Todd Gurley or Fournette be my number one running back, which I'm personally not comfortable with. Mentioning Gurley, uh, I know he had an amazing rookie year, but man, that offensive line in St. Louis is pretty rough. And then I'll hit on Fournette as we get towards that pick, but right now I'll kind of just bring it back to the guys that are being picked. You kind of saw that run on receivers after the top three running backs went. So like I said, Antonio Brown, Julio, Odell, AJ, those are guys that you're expecting to be picked in those spots. Then you've got Mike Evans and Jordy. I have no problem with that. If I had to rank the guys, the receiver group, this is pretty close to how I would rank them. And speaking of that, I'll have a receiver ranking coming out pretty soon, so keep a lookout for that. And as far as just kind of analyzing these picks, I'm seeing Ajayi just got picked at 13, which in my opinion way too early. I think Melvin Gordon is going to have a better year than he will. I think Jordan Howard is going to have probably a better year than him. But hey, that just leaves better players on the board for when I'm around, so I'm not going to complain. And okay, see, there goes a run of three tailbacks. It's Murray, Howard, Gordon. So the best available I have right now is Lamar Miller. According to these ranks, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't have him this high. And then after that, it's Todd Gurley, Fournette. But I'll hold off on the running back for now. This pick, I am gonna go receiver, and my preference would be I like Amari Cooper, Demaryius Thomas. I would like if they had an established quarterback in Denver. I mean, he was a stud when Peyton Manning was there. But a guy that I do like to bounce back and that I'm personally very high on is DeAndre Hopkins. Just 2 years ago, he was a top 5 receiver. And with Deshaun Watson in Houston now, I do think that at some point you will see Deshaun Watson play. So I do like to see DeAndre Hopkins have that bounce back year. Unfortunately, he just went. Of course, right when I'm building him up and hyping him up, he gets picked 3 picks before me, and there goes Amari Cooper. So now I'm left with the decision. I've got Gronk, and I've said before, I don't like picking a tight end this early. Usually, I would wait to take a guy like Kelsey or Olsen. So I'll see how that works out, waiting all the way until the, I guess, 4th round for that. In the meantime, I'm not high on Jeffrey. I'm not high on Demaryius Thomas. I don't want to pick back-to-back running backs. So I'm going to go with Keenan Allen, actually, because I just saw news that Mike Williams on the Chargers is expected to miss probably his entire rookie year. And with that being said, Keenan Allen just becomes a lot more valuable. And you can see Gronk just went, Brandon Cooks just went. I'm pretty high on Brandon Cooks, but I thought I could actually get him in the 3rd round because it was only a couple picks apart. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But as you can see, there's still really good guys here, and especially PPR guys. And one of these guys I've had for the last 2 years in a row is Doug Baldwin. I see Jarvis Landry still there, Julian Edelman still there. But I'm gonna go with Doug Baldwin and secure a pretty stellar group when it comes to PPR receivers with Keenan Allen, Doug Baldwin. And that's a big if in terms of if Keenan Allen stays healthy. But if he does, I imagine he'll have a pretty good year. I said before, I mentioned these guys, Gurley and Fournette. The fact that we're around the 29th pick and that neither of them have been selected, I think kind of backs up what I've been saying. People are hesitant to take a rookie. People are hesitant to take a guy in Todd Gurley that flopped last year. I think there's better options than them later on. A guy like Marshawn Lynch, especially when he's playing behind that offensive line in Oakland. Uh, he has the potential to be a stud and score a lot of touchdowns, especially in the red zone. But obviously, it's all going to depend on how he comes back from his uh, hiatus from football. I don't know what kind of shape he'll be in. Um, Speaking of other running backs, I see Christian McCaffrey. He's in the top 40. Um, Now, if this wasn't PPR, he's not going in the top 40. The only reason he's ranked this high is because it's PPR, and you know he's going to get peppered with those short passes. I'm personally not that high on taking rookies, and I know the situation in Carolina pretty well. I follow them pretty closely. That offensive line isn't the best. I don't know how Cam's going to come back from injury, so I'll probably avoid McCaffrey. Julian Edelman at this point is still on the board. I think that's a really good value pick at this point. Allen Robinson, I do think the Jaguars are going to bounce back offensively. He's a good receiver. He had a little bit of a down year in 2016, but the year before that, he was a stud. And I think he's got that potential again. And you see, like I mentioned, I could have had Gronk, but that would have meant me passing up on one of these receivers. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Kelsey or Olsen, because I'm assuming that one or both of them will still be available when I'm picking. And so far, that's taking shape. An approach that I actually have come to like recently, and the only scenario is when it's Kelsey and Olsen, just because they're ranked so closely together. And if you have two picks close together, kind of like I do, right at the end of a round and at the beginning of another, what I would have said if Kelsey hadn't just gone would be to double up on tight ends, to take Kelsey and Olsen and keep one of those guys as your flex. And that way, I mean, both guys are really dependable pass catchers. They're good targets on the respective teams. And not only do you have two solid pass catchers, but you also have leverage for a possible trade later in the season for a tight end hungry team. So right now, all I'm going to do is keep my fingers crossed that Greg Olsen is there at number 46. And in the meantime, I'm already thinking of another player that I can target. And for me, I need a running back. I like to fill out my squad, there goes Greg Olsen, unfortunately. But all right, it is what it is. A guy that I was targeting before that was Ty Montgomery, so I'm going to go ahead, pull the trigger on Ty Montgomery. I recently came out with some rankings for tight ends, and a guy that I had ranked right behind Olsen was Martellus Bennett. And if you check the rankings, Martellus Bennett is actually all the way ranked at 122. So I have a pretty good feeling that if I wait even longer, he'll still be there. And in the meantime, I can turn my attention to a flex guy or even to a quarterback. And if he makes it to me, I'll pick Drew Brees. He's my number 2 running back, or my number 2 quarterback. I have Rodgers number 1. Of course, there goes Brees, but I mean that's the nature of these fantasy drafts. So I'm looking down the board. Devontae Adams, he's a good option. Powell, not a bad option, but he's going to be splitting carries with Forte. Fitz, I think Palmer is kind of done. I'm looking at some other options. Actually, a guy that I do like is Tyreek Hill. He has value on special teams, and now he's going to get a boost with Jeremy Maclin gone. So I'm going to go ahead, take Hill. Maybe this is a little bit of a reach, but I mean, this is just how this draft has unfolded. Sometimes I'm luckier than others. Maybe if this was a draft under other circumstances, I would have had Olsen, I would have had Breeze, but that's just how it is. So kind of just try and make the best of the situation. And just tracking how these picks are going. I like Andrew Luck a lot. I think he probably won't be there by the time I pick at 69, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. In the meantime, I'll probably keep this video going up until the 8th or 9th round, something like that, and then I'll conclude it. I'll put this on auto pick and kind of just do a little brief summary of the team that I was able to put together. But as of right now, I'll just kind of scroll through the available players that I'm high on. I see Dante Moncrief, that's a guy that I'm high on, with Andrew Luck back healthy, or at least hopefully healthy. So it's a guy that I would invest a bench spot in or a flex spot. I said before, high in Andrew Luck. Brendan Marshall, I think he'll have a good year. This is going to be the best quarterback he's ever played for in his career, and a lot of people are going to be focusing on Odell Beckham. So it's either going to be a scenario where Odell Beckham kind of has some diminished targets, or he actually plays even better because people are now focusing on Brendan Marshall. But either way, I think Brendan Marshall is a good pickup at this point. I'm also high on Martavis Bryant. I think it's easy to forget that he was so good just a couple of years back, and at certain points he was playing better than Antonio Brown, which is ridiculous to think about. His main thing has always been, can he stay on the field, and not because of injuries, but because of all his off-the-field issues. So I do think he's a good value at 73. I'm going down the list. I see Mike Gillislee. He'll be a PPR guy. I don't know how he'll do. I say PPR guy, but look at his projections, 13 receptions, so maybe not. Maybe that's just how Buffalo used him. But it seems like he's projected to be the #1 running back in New England. I just don't like investing specifically in New England running backs, and some people might say, oh, you're wrong in doing that. Look at what LeGarrette Blount did. But LeGarrette Blount, he was a bigger back than Gillislee is, and he had been in that system before. So I do think that the New England system takes some time getting used to. For that reason, I'd probably pass on Gillislee. I see Tyler Eifert here, and I had ranked him just outside my top 5 tight ends. So maybe just to round out the squad, I won't wait for Martellus Bennett. I'll snag up Tyler Eifert. But we'll see. I would rather have a tight end that's getting the ball thrown by Aaron Rodgers than a guy that's getting the ball thrown by the guy in Cincinnati, a Red Rifle. So that's all I have to say about that. But as you can see, number 70 is coming up, and Andrew Luck is still on the board. We'll see what happens. If I have my way, I'll snag him up, and then I'm looking at some other options. Yeah, the next guy, Kyle Rudolph, Jimmy Graham. So I mean, it's you can clearly see that. Obviously, my rankings are a little bit different than ESPN's, but you're always going to have that. Not always going to be in agreement. And just like I said before, I highlighted these guys. I highlighted Martavis Bryant and Martavis Bryant and Brandon Marshall, and look at that. Wouldn't you know it, they got picked earlier than what their rankings were. I think people realize that. And while I was talking, unfortunately, Andrew Luck got selected. So we have to do yet another pivot, but that's all right. The guy that I've been talking up, Dante Moncrief, is still here. I wouldn't mind picking him at number 70. I think it's good value. And what I'll end up doing is I'll pick Moncrief right here. And right now at this point, I'm pretty much drafting for value. Um, what I usually prefer to do is I like to fill up my roster, but just these breaks that I've had haven't gone my way. So I'll just tell you what I would do in the next following rounds because I'm pretty sure that these guys would be available, and then I'll kind of talk about my team and finish off the video there. But guys that I'm really high on are all right here: Derek Carr, Big Ben, Jameis Winston. I'm also high on that quarterback running back combination, and in this case I did get Zeke, so I might roll the dice on Dak Prescott, even though I'm pretty scared of the sophomore slump. So for what it's worth, I'd probably would go with Big Ben, who's a more established quarterback, but let's see who we have left. As far as value goes here, Mike Gillislee's there, and you know what? I did say I had some concerns about Gillislee, but those New England running backs do tend to surprise, so I'll pick him up and stash him on my bench and see what happens from there. But like I said, usually if I had to wait until the 94th pick, I would go with the quarterback, and then I would fill that tight end spot with a guy like Martellus Bennett at 99. And let's see what happens. What I'll do instead is I'll kind of talk about my team now, and maybe by the time I'm finished talking, it'll be my turn to pick again, since a lot of people are an auto pick. But with the first pick, I went with Zeke. Not too displeased with that pick. Maybe that'll change in the next couple of weeks. Maybe he'll be going around 4 or 5 or even 6 if he gets expended. But we'll see. I think the upside is just too huge with the offensive line that he plays behind. My second running back, Ty Montgomery, the reason that I really like Ty is because he kind of had a coming out party last year. And he is a receiver converted into a running back. So I know it says running back, but he's more of an offensive weapon. The Packers can use him as a receiver if they do get some injuries in that position. So he'll become pretty valuable. And again, as always, he's got Aaron Rodgers potentially throwing him the football. In the second round, I picked Keenan Allen, and some might say that's way too early for him, but the only reason that I would justify it right now is going back 2 years ago, PPR-wise, he was a stud. And now, breaking news that Mike Williams in San Diego is most likely going to miss his entire rookie year. So that's what led me to pick him in the second round. Then I circled back with Doug Baldwin, another PPR guy, and in my opinion, without a doubt, Russell Wilson's favorite target. So the last 2 years he's balled out, and I think that'll again be the case, especially if they figure out that running game. If they figure out that running game, everyone in Seattle benefits. Not only the running backs, but also Russell Wilson and also the receivers. And then I had some things not go my way in terms of who I would have picked at tight end. And hey, maybe that's what I get, because I could have had Gronk, but instead I went with Keenan Allen. So that's a thing to keep an eye out on. I'm not the only one that has Olsen and Kelsey ranked higher than what they show in these fantasy drafts. So that's the thing to keep an eye out. Sometimes you're going to have to reach for a guy in order to get him. Then I went with Tyreek Hill, and for me, the main thing is this is a guy that is going to get more targets purely because Macklin is gone. So I'm pretty happy with that selection. And then looking at my bench, usually I address that last, and sometimes I don't get the best value here, but I'm very happy with the value I got. As you can see, I got Moncrief, I got Gillislee. I think both these guys can be a tier 2 player in their respective fields. So I think Moncrief has the potential to be a tier 2 receiver, Gillislee, tier 2 running back. And both these guys, in my book at least, have very high upside. I would go through the other teams, but kind of, in my opinion, I can maybe actually make that a second video. So we'll see and kind of grade each team. If that comes up, then just keep a lookout for it. But in the meantime, it's almost my pick, and let's see. My quarterback Dak is still there. So is Big Ben. So is Jameis. And I've mentioned Jameis. He's a guy that I really like to have a breakout here. He has so many weapons, and there goes Dak Prescott. So he won't be my pick. Never mind. I probably would have picked him. Now, thinking back on it, and the only reason would have been because I have Ezekiel Elliott. If I did not have Zeke for that quarterback running back combo, I would not pick Dak Prescott as my starting quarterback. But since that's no longer an option, I'll go ahead pick Martellus Bennett. So now I've got my tight end. Then I'll go back to the quarterback list and look at either Derek Carr, Big Ben, or Jameis. And I'm looking at the way that my team is made up, looking at bye weeks. I've got some guys at week 8, week 9. So maybe I skip on Big Ben. He has injury issues, so that's a concern. But we'll see how this shapes up. We'll see who gets picked right now. Derek Carr. I mean, he was an MVP consideration for part of the season last year towards the end. If he doesn't get hurt, then you don't know what happens with Oakland in the playoffs. But I'm going to go ahead and take Big Ben. Yeah, I'm going to take Big Ben just because I kind of favor the guys that have a little bit more experience. And I know Big Ben has done it for a while, and they're going to be pushing for that maybe last Super Bowl run while he's still there. So I'm going to go ahead and get Big Ben. And, you know, once it comes back to me at 118, if any of these guys are still available, I'll say it right now, I would go ahead and pick Derek Carr or Jameis Winston just as a backup. So with that being said, I don't want to make this video any longer than it's already been. So I'm going to wrap things up here. And like I said before, give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know whether you agree that I had a pretty good draft. I would probably give it an A-, B+ kind of draft. If things had fallen my way, probably an A. But it is what it is. And, you know, with that, I'm going to cut this video off right here. And like I said again, give me those comments. And if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff.